welcome everyone to the regular council meeting for Tuesday, May 24th. Council administration. Additionally, we are honored to have Chief Blue Megan with us and Chair of the Lacombe Police Commission, Corey Gish. Thank you both for attending as well. Everybody's had an opportunity to look at the agendas. Are there any consent items we would like to have removed or any other agenda related adjustments? Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I would like to add one item in camera, legal.
Thank you. Chief Gowdy.
I would also like to add one in camera legal item, as well as just to look at the Monday, June 6th proposed committee of the whole meeting and propose a deferral of that meeting.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Connick.
I would so move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. I think all those in favor. Very good. And with respect to the overall agenda, Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll move we accept the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Anything additional on that one? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. So before we move into our Lacombe Police Commission and Lacombe Police Service Annual Report 2021, I just wanted to take a moment to thank a couple of members here who sit on the Lacombe Police Commission for all of your hard work and time. I know that as volunteers, it's one of those boards that demands a fair bit of extra time, more than many other boards. And I just wanted to acknowledge that publicly and thank you on behalf of council for the work that you do. So thank you very much. And whenever you are ready to go, the floor is yours. Chair Gish.
Thank you for those notes, Mayor Creasy. I'll pass that back to my commission. The Lacombe Police Commission is very well populated with some very committed members, and we've been compiling and going through a lot of work this year, but I think everyone's pretty pleased with being able to make that contribution.
Thanks, Commissioner Gish. Thanks for having us this evening. We've been looking forward to the opportunity to present the 2021 annual report. I believe everybody has been provided with a copy of the report. Not sure who is clicking the button for me, but I appreciate that. If you need me to do it, let me know. Just in follow-up, the work of the commission has been admirable. This is a really dedicated group, a very engaged group, and I appreciate all the work and commitment that everybody on the commission has provided. I just want to thank some of the outgoing commission members. Judy Luch and Edith McKinley retired from the commission at the end of 2021, and also Councillor Connick stepped down as the council rep on the commission. And we want to welcome some of our new members and existing members. Our existing members are Sonia Dixlag, Cam Penstone, Elaine Willett-Larson, and we have outgoing Public Complaints Director Brad Pears. Our new members are John Soderberg, Ken Kulak, and Ken Kulak is also our Public Complaints Director, and new councillor representative is Councillor Hoekstra. So we're happy to have Councillor Hoekstra on the team. So throughout this year, or throughout 2021 and moving into 2022, as Chair Gish had referenced, it's been a very busy year looking at compliance for the service and commission, other areas coming through the pandemic, Of course, the pandemic has provided challenges for the entire community and the entire province. Within the last year, we want to recognize that we have adapted to those changes, the changing environment. Our staff has been committed to providing 24/7 policing in a emergency capacity and preventative proactive capacity as well. Throughout the year, we've maintained our dispatch services, which included monitoring for community peace officers in a number of surrounding counties. And we've also made inroads in regards to our dispatch, and we have lobbied for funding, grant funding for secondary peace outs in the province, which we are, and we will receive funding for that in 2022. So we had a number of really positive initiatives that saw some success. We continued to focus on our traffic safety initiatives, high collision locations, and conducted a number of check stops throughout the year. We also implemented a full-time traffic officer position, which was to focus on high collision locations or collision reduction strategies. Throughout 2021, we recognized the retirement of Sergeant Rick Kohut, who had spent 22 years with the service and 48 years in policing. So we congratulated him on his long service to the community, Lacombe and other communities that he had served in. And then we welcomed Constable Copan, Constable Austin, Constable Hartlieb, and Constable Allnut to our ranks. And we continued to provide one secondment position to Alert in Red Deer. Throughout 2021, we received 594 calls for service, which noted a 13% increase over 2020. But calls for service were 9% below the 5-year average, and a lot of that was directly related to the pandemic and people not being as mobile as in previous years. Some of the benefits to that was we did see a 16% decrease in crimes against person. We did see an 8% increase in crimes against property. We saw a 79% decrease in drug offenses, but much of that is still attributed to the legalization of cannabis and cannabis products. So a 24% decrease in other criminal code offenses, and impaired driving was down 9%. However, with the 9% reduction in impaired driving offenses, the province introduced an administrative sanction process for impaired driving in 2021. And on those administrative processes, the impaired statistics were actually up significantly, but that was due to proactive enforcement, and administrative avenues are much easier to administrate and follow through with than going through the court process and regular process through the criminal code. For provincial act offenses, we saw an increase of 61% over 2020, and many of those calls were related to COVID-19 compliance and mental health act occurrences. In all categories, our charges laid increased to 2,440, which represented a 30% increase from 2020. As far as our organizational structure, we did do some restructuring in 2021. Thank you. We implemented a permanent staff sergeant position to oversee all of supervisory sergeants and provide oversight to operations as well as professional standards investigations and specialized units. As I mentioned, we continued to fill a position with the Alberta Law Enforcement team, Alert. And With that relationship, we actually saw a couple of significant incidents that Alert assisted with in 2021, one being a importation of GHB, which is a fairly high level drug that was coming into our community, and also another incident where drugs and guns were being trafficked through individuals that were temporarily living in our community. Constable Wilser transitioned into the school resource officer position, which continues to support staff and students within Wolf Creek Public Schools. And as I mentioned, we had a number of new members start with the service. In total, our authorized strength remains at 22 sworn police officers plus 1 Alert funded seconded position. 8 full-time staff, 2 part-time support staff, 4 casual positions, 4 casual guards, and 1 casual office maintenance. Our police population ratio, I think, has been a success over the last few years at 608 citizens to 1 police officer, which is slightly below the provincial average and national average, but I think it has been appropriate for community growth within Lacombe. And we'll continue to monitor that as the population of Lacombe grows. Just with our police officers' number of years of service and experience, we've actually got a pretty good breakdown with 18% being less than 2 years, 24% being 2 to 4 years, 24% 5 to 9 years, and 29% 10 to 19 years, and 9% 20 plus years. So it's a good breakdown and blend of new and experienced employees. Overall, with our statistics, looking at the 5-year averages, once again, referencing the pandemic, we saw a significant drop in 2020 with total occurrences and starting to move back to normal numbers in 2021. But the 5-year average, we're still slightly below. In 2022, we anticipate that we will be close to those 5-year averages again. Many of the calls for service that were of note, we did see an increase in uttering of threats by 3.2%. Frauds over was a significant increase of 74%. Much of this was due to frauds being committed through the internet or by phone, but mostly online type of fraudulent scams where individuals in our community were sending money in excess of $5,000. So your frauds over did go up by an alarming amount. We continue to try and educate vulnerable groups in this area and educate the public as well. And there's been quite a bit of media coverage on these scams. Unfortunately, people continue to fall victim. Our break and enters increased by 15%. Mischiefs increased by 9%. Our thefts over 5,000 decreased by 32%. And our possession of stolen property decreased by 33%. One of the statistics that we found a little bit surprising, but in a good way, was our domestic violence calls for service decreased just about 25% in 2021, which was somewhat contrary to what we thought would happen during the pandemic. And there's a number of theories for that, but the percentage decrease is favorable. One area that we did see an increase of 4% was mental health calls for service, and in that area, that exceeded our 5-year call average over any of the past 5 years. And we did, on a day-to-day basis, notice that trend was occurring. Just quickly reference some of the other crime statistics. They're on the graph here. And it does go in ebbs and flows, but in all the areas, or the majority of areas, we are trending back to our 5-year averages. And we will see at the end of this year what that looks like. As far as statistics go, the past 2 years has been very difficult to analyze. And we do put a lot of blame on the pandemic, but that is our reality. Just going to move into some of our traffic statistics and our collision analysis. So once again, in 2021, we saw 151 traffic collisions, 38 hit and runs, 11 collisions with injuries, and 0 fatalities. There again, with the flow of traffic and different, yes, the inability for people to move freely, we did see lower traffic counts, and that resulted in fewer collisions. We also saw our total violations were down over the past 5 years, however, slightly above 2021, and that was mostly due to self-initiated traffic initiatives. With our traffic analysis, our highest concentration of collision locations still occur at Woodland Drive and Wolf Creek Drive and Highway 2A and Highway 12. Most of these collisions continue to happen during peak hours, during high traffic volume times of the day. And then I referenced the Alberta government had launched the Justice Transformation Initiative. And in that area, when I talked about the 9% reduction in impaired driving, we did see 20 immediate roadside sanctions or fails, which would typically be impaired driving, which would make up for the reduction in the criminal code side. We saw 13 24-hour suspensions, 8 novice driver suspensions, and 11 warnings in 2021. So overall, our impaired driving statistics are coming up, but on the criminal side, they're being reduced. This is the final year of our 3-year strategic plan. The Commission and the service are developing a new strategic plan as we speak. But overall, for the past 3 years, we have met all of the goals set within our strategic plan, including exemplifying excellence in policing, recruit selection, retention of quality staff, reduction of crime and victimization, strengthening community partnerships, improving traffic safety, and excellence in police service delivery. When we talk about our revenues, 15% of our revenues come from government grants, sale of goods and services, or sorry, 11% from government grants, sale of goods and services, 15%. Fine revenue at 5%, and our tax supported is 69%. Our expenditures stayed relatively the same, with salaries and benefits being 78% of our budget, external contracts being 5%, internal charges 11%, and operations seeing 6%. When we talk about professional standards or complaints, our citizen complaints. Within 2021, the police service itself initiated 1 internal review and received 6 external complaints from community members. Of those, one internal complaint was an allegation of misconduct and excessive use of force. And in the report, it says that that matter was unresolved. However, that complaint has since been dismissed by the commission as being frivolous and vexatious. And we actually received an apology from the complainant after that decision was made by the commission. And the other complaints didn't meet the threshold under the Police Act for any type of misconduct or offense under the Police Act. However, we did provide training, mentorship, and guidance to any of the members that were named in those, we call them citizen concerns. As far as annual awards and recognition, we had a number of members receive a variety of awards through a submission made through the commission. I was awarded the Order of Merit for Police Forces in Canada. Sergeant Nicole Martin and Constable Carl Matthews received the Alberta Long Service Emergency Services Medals. Constable Matthews also received a 10-year Lacombe Police Service Medal. Constable Galenzi received the City of Lacombe 5-year Long Service Award, as did Constable Healy and Constable Walker. Sergeant Brian Zenz was voted through the rank of Staff Sergeant, which was a milestone, as the service hasn't had this rank within the police service since its inception. We also saw Constable Barrett advance to first class, Constable Jordan to second class, Constable Walker to second class, and Constable Marsolier to third class constable. And then, as I previously mentioned, Constable Cohat retired from policing after 48 years of serving this and other communities. As far as our community involvement, as I mentioned previously, we continue to monitor for officer safety reasons, other community peace officer agencies, and we continue to expand in that area. Our school resource officer program has been very active. Constable Wilser has had an extremely busy year, and our victim services unit continues to support victims of violence and other crimes. Fortunately, some of our signature programs like Kids and Cops in the summer did not run in 2021. And we're happy to note that program will be moving ahead this summer. And the Lacombe Community Watch Foundation struggled throughout the pandemic, and they are still in a position, they were inactive in 2021, but are still working to move forward this year and in future years. So we will provide them all the support we can. And that is 2021 annual report for the commission and the service.
Thank you very much, Chief Bloom-Hagan. I expect there will be a few questions and or comments, although there's no lights on right now. I was just curious if the SRO, School Resource Officer calls, are included in the stats here with respect to mental health issues, or is that a separate category?
The school resource officer calls for service are included in the overall statistics. We do have actually, that isn't specified in this report, but specific stats for the SRO. The SRO provides those monthly to the commission as well as Wolf Creek School Division, and each of the schools outlining the incidents they've been involved in, but they are captured in the overall calls for service.
I appreciate that. And given I think it would be a reasonable expectation that those mental health related issues saw a rise in the school system over that year. Correct me if I'm wrong, was it only an aggregate total for the whole community of an increase of 4% from the previous year? Was that? That just seems, I mean, any increase, of course, is not
Yeah.
pleasant, but that's a pretty low number.
I would say that when you look at the 5-year average, which typically in the pandemic, we saw that in all areas it went, or they were lower. In most categories, pre-pandemic numbers were higher. In the area of mental health, 2020 and 2021 were up significantly. And I think the one thing to note on these types of calls for service is the complexity of the calls has definitely increased, where they aren't just a phone call and maybe a check on the welfare of somebody. We're usually looking at a longer period of time that members are dealing with the individuals, more conveyances to mental health facilities. So the complexity of the incidents has definitely increased as well as the numbers.
Interesting. So perhaps one more award that you could give to Officer Matthews is his fundraising abilities at McHappy Days. I think everybody that went through the drive-through had like lighter pockets, which is a good thing. Goes for a good cause.
And actually, fortunately, I was away for that event, but all of the staff members and staff that participated in that came back with very positive comments, and we really like participating in that fundraising event as well as others. But that one is everybody was speaking quite highly of it at the end of the day.
And I think that does speak highly of the police service when they're willing to do that type of thing. I've had many positive comments from community members on the way through. So great. Thank you for that as well. Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Obviously, the police officers did a better job than the mayor. There's no doubt about that. Anyway, because I did that with you before and I know we both were pathetic. I'd just like to make a couple of comments and one of them, well, directed at Chief Bloomhagen. I mean, I just hear nothing but positives regarding the force and how important it is to our community. And the commission also, and the work that they've done, it's been outstanding. I have a question regarding the number of officers you have off on long-term leave. And I suspect that's affected your ability to police the way you want to. And can you address that and where we're going to be in the future as far as those 5, I think 5 officers are off? Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, and that's for a variety of reasons that we had those leaves. However, currently we are down to 1 longer term leave. So we're seeing our numbers come back. It's definitely taught us to do things a little bit differently, view things a little bit differently. It's been a learning lesson for us. But when we're dealing with health issues in any individual, those types of things are not overly predictable at times. And I think we've done a fairly good job at managing those items and supporting the employees along the way. All our staff that have been in those positions, but we're currently down to 1 and very happy to see that. So resourcing, we're starting to see a trend back to where we should be. And throughout a pandemic, that was increasingly challenging because we were just adapting to so many rule changes and dynamics throughout that it definitely had an impact on all of our staff as well, just trying to adapt and I guess relearn some new things.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
One other item that we just touch on briefly, if you could, you'd mentioned that our officer to population ratio is slightly below the provincial average here in Lacombe. And I guess I find me perhaps a little surprised to hear that, only because of many of the other mayors that I speak to across the province, quite frankly, are envious of the number of officers that we have to serve our population. So I'm just wondering, is it is it because of Edmonton that skews those numbers so bad with its huge population and its very high officer to population ratio that perhaps makes it seem a little skewed more than what it necessarily is? Because I guess I would be more interested in perhaps seeing a comparison to area services a little closer to Lacombe as opposed to province-wide, because that is my expectation, is that does skew the numbers an awful lot, given their population. Is that a fair assessment, or?
I'd say, and that's why I say we're a little bit below the provincial average, but I think we're okay where we're at. There's a variety of reasons for that differentiation from municipality to municipality. One thing that we do take advantage of here in Lacombe, that talking specific numbers, municipality by municipality, that's how they're derived. We don't have an overabundance of specialized services. We still rely on our provincial policing agreement with the province, and those services are provided by another police agency, which would cause their numbers to affect that provincial average wherever those members are placed throughout the province or whatever municipality. So we do have additional resources that we rely on and that we do take advantage of and utilize their services that are falling into someone else's statistics.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess I would be interested to know is what our crime severity index is. It's between 1 to 300, and I also quite often highlight that to new citizens. There's been a lot of citizens move into Lacombe from Ontario, BC, and they do the research. And we have a 24/7 service that, with all due respect, some of our adjoining neighbors do not. Our adjoining services are also responsible for the rural and an extended service area that quite often at times takes them out of their main urban community that is, and the lack of 24/7 service. It's a deterrent when we have people come into our community when we have 24/7. I know I've heard of examples of other communities not have coverage between 3 and 7, and sorry, but criminals know that. I've heard of break-in enters right next to their detachment, like after 3 o'clock. Like it's anyways, I would be interested to know that number because we get asked that through other citizens.
Thanks. You put me on the spot a bit because I couldn't remember where it was in the report, but I've got it now. So we had a very favorable result of 60.51. That rating places at 153 communities out of 300 across Canada. But for Alberta, that is, I believe, puts us at probably the highest favorable rating for a community in Alberta. So we did very well in that area. And I think we will continue to see that trend moving forward, or when the statistics come out for 2022. Just one point that I didn't highlight in my report that ties into that as well is we get very favorable feedback in regards to our approach to policing, our proactive approach, our visibility and our presence. But about 6 years ago now, we brought back our own dispatch as well, after identifying that the community calls for service were coming in late, and our opportunity or our response to a call, because of the delayed dispatch, our members were arriving on scene after a call half an hour or more after somebody had put that call into the dispatch center. Since implementing our own dispatch, our dispatch times in 2021 were 3.65 minutes and response time to scene 7.92 minutes. That's enabled us to be on the scene of a call, and we have caught people in the act of committing crimes, or if somebody phones in a suspicious vehicle, we can get into the area and at least identify or speak to an individual that may be driving through the industrial area. While they're there, we may not be able to prove that they're up to no good, but when they leave the area, that's probably a benefit to those businesses, and we know that there is a deterrent factor there. We do receive feedback from our clients that they shouldn't have committed crime in Lacombe because they knew they would get caught. So even though that's anecdotal and there's not much statistically to back that up, we do get that feedback. But we do know that having our localized dispatch is working, and we stay in a favorable area when it comes to our CSI reporting.
I appreciate your terms, clients. That's one business where the fewer the clients, the better. So thank you for that. Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I just wanted to thank you both for coming in tonight, and I did want to just echo the mayor's earlier comments, just acknowledging the work of the commission. It is a heavy workload on that committee, as I've been a part of that before, and I want to thank those volunteers for their many hours. Just a couple of quick comments. Good to see the domestic violence calls down. I think that's very encouraging. And I hope you're wrong, Chief Blumhagen. I hope we don't go back to the 5-year average for calls for service. I like being under the 6,000 mark. I think that's great. And hopefully we can stay there. So, but we'll see what the future brings. Thank you.
I'm guessing you meant 600, Mark, not 6,000. Others, that would be a dramatic increase. Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you for your time, and we'll see what we can do to keep those calls in abeyance. We just don't control the other end of the phone. But I do want to thank the council and commission once again, and Mayor Creasy, just to let you know, the feedback from our members was they were right at the top for the province at McHappy Day until you arrived, and then things slowed down a bit. So if you could pick it up next year a little bit, but appreciated, they actually much appreciated work with you on that day. And I think with a hockey game coming tonight, we'll try and send it off or get off the stage early so that hopefully you can focus on other things earlier as well.
Thank you again. We appreciate you both coming in. So originally we had planned for another presentation. Was that being conducted online, is it? Very good. And so if Arda Irk is co-founder of Roll Technologies, I believe, and forgive me for mispronouncing your name, I expect, if you are able to hear us, I want to let you know that the floor is yours, and please go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, members of the council. Let me quickly share my screen. Are you able to see the presentation? Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, we are. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to present to the council today. My name is Arda Erturk, and I'm the co-founder and the Chief Communications Officer at Roll. Roll is the only Canadian-owned, developed, and operated shared micromobility provider incubated in the University of Toronto's Entrepreneurship Hub and backed by Techstars, the largest global business accelerator. We offer a community-first model to deliver shared mobility service to the cities we support. We operated our fleet of electric vehicles in Calgary, Ottawa, Kelowna, Red Deer, St. Albert, and Cochrane. And we look forward to provide with a safe, clean, and convenient mode of transportation and deliver a successful pilot program in Lacombe. It is very easy to rent our vehicles. You need to download the Roll app on Google Play or App Store. Once you download, scan the QR code of the vehicle to unlock the scooter. Scooters will be deployed across the city. You can ride the scooter anywhere within the service area. Once you arrive at your destination, park the scooter in the furniture zone of the sidewalk and end the trip in the app. There is no need for a docking station or any other physical locking equipment. We help cities to develop their shared micromobility program framework using the best practices and our experience we have gained from other cities. Here are some of our recommendations for a potential pilot project in Lacombe. We are proposing a 2-year pilot project that will help the city to assess the program. After the pilot, the city may choose to move forward with a permanent program. The pilot will be fully funded and operated by Roll at no cost to the city. We will also donate some of our revenue to the city for infrastructure projects. Speed will be capped at 20 kilometers per hour, similar to the other cities in Canada. At Roll, we treat e-scooters as bikes. We believe that e-scooters should be allowed to be ridden on areas where bikes can be ridden. Hence, it should be allowed on paved trails, empty sidewalks, bike lanes, and roadways with a speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour or lower. It should not be allowed to be ridden on highways, and riders must be 16 years of age or older to ride an e-scooter. Shared e-scooters play an important role in economic recovery from COVID-19. In all the cities we operated in, small businesses experienced a higher level of customer traffic as soon as we deploy our scooters, as e-scooters provide a convenient mode of transportation for both residents and visitors. It reduces traffic congestion by getting people out of their cars. In Calgary, city staff reported 1 in 3 shared e-scooter trips replaced a car trip. It helps to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries on city streets to create a safe and healthy city. Safety is our #1 priority at Roll. Rider education is a key component of shared micromobility programs. We provide a comprehensive in-app video tutorial every time when a rider starts a trip. We show them where they can ride, where they can park, helmet laws, and other safety tips. We utilize traditional media and social media as well to reach out to a broader range of riders and non-riders to share safety tips and educate them about the program. I personally attend local podcasts, hold Reddit Ask Me Anything sessions. We have safety quizzes on our Instagram stories, and we constantly communicate with our riders through these channels. And here are some pictures from our in-person safety events. Compared to the other operators in Canada, Roll has the best safety track record, as no serious injuries have ever been reported in our operational history since 2019, thanks to our rider education efforts and our safety-first vehicles. We distributed more than 1,000 helmets for free in all the cities we operated in. We use various methods to distribute helmets. We have partnered locations such as small businesses and tourism centers. Riders can pick up helmets at these locations at no cost. Riders can also request free helmets through our website. We hold educational community events and we provide free helmets there too. We also have a patrol team that provides helmets on the street to our riders. Geofencing is an important technology that we use. Think of this like a virtual fence. Scooters travel at a slower speed upon entering a slow speed zone. And when you enter a no ride zone, the scooter slows down gradually and stops safely to discourage riding. When you attempt to end a trip in a geofence no park zone, you are unable to do so and receive instructions via the app to park in a permitted area. We can implement these zones within seconds through our fleet management dashboard. Automated parking enforcement, APE, riders are required to take a picture of how they park the scooter at the end of every trip. We use machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms to detect if it's blocking the sidewalk or blocking any entrances or accessibility paths. We send a stern educational reminder if a rider parks it improperly. We also issue fines and even suspend their accounts permanently if they don't comply with the rules. Riders also have the option to upload their helmet selfie at the end of their trip. Our AI algorithms will detect if there's a helmet in that picture and provide the right discount for their next ride. We implemented one of the best cognitive tests in the industry to prevent drunk riding. During certain hours, riders will need to pass this sobriety test in order to unlock a scooter. If they can't pass this test, they won't be able to ride. Patrol and safety team, we call them Roll Squad. They regularly roll around the city to observe riding behaviors and provide training and helmets to our riders. They also relocate improperly parked scooters as well, if they see any. Equity is an important component of transportation. We have an equity program called Roll for Everyone that we provide 50% off to every trip to eligible participants. We also recognize those community members that may not have a credit card or debit card. Roll for Everyone program also allows those unbanked folks to purchase a roll card with cash at partner locations, removing the two main barriers to equitable transportation. We develop strategic partnerships to maintain an accessible and equitable utilization of our shared e-scooters. With our partnerships with Google Maps, Move It, and Transit app, our rollers can conveniently plan multimodal trips with roll scooters. We also have a partnership with Student Price Card, which is a national student discount program to offer affordable rides for students. We are featuring and promoting small businesses on our app at no cost to encourage our riders to try their products. One business that we promoted in Kelowna, BC, saw a 32% increase in customer traffic within just 1 week. As local Canadian entrepreneurs, we're very proud of supporting local businesses. And the best thing about Shared Micromobility program is that it costs nothing to the city. Everything, including the cost of scooters, operations, education, communications, and enforcement, will be funded by Roll. And on top of that, we're proposing to donate a certain amount of our revenue from each ride to the city for infrastructure projects, which will create safe streets and bike and scooter friendly community. We look forward to the opportunity to provide our vehicles in Lacombe, and that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Arda. Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I'm kind of excited about this. I would certainly get behind a 2-year pilot program to try this out. Couple of questions. You say you have a roll squad that goes around to relocate improperly parked scooters. Is that something that's occurs every day or once a week? How often would we see them in town, for example, here?
Through the chair, that's a great question. Normally in smaller cities, we have our logistics team where they rebalance the scooters, they deploy and charge it in the warehouse. They're also part of our patrol team. They roll around the city. They look for people if someone is trying to unlock the vehicle. And we have schedules. We have morning schedule, afternoon, and evening. So it's on a I would say 24/7 basis in the cities we operate in.
Okay, thank you. If I may follow up.
Sure.
That's kind of the only other thing. If there's a knock that kind of drives me nuts about these things when you go to other communities is that you see them all over the place, just kind of parked here, tossed here, wherever. I'm glad you have this automated parking enforcement to try to prevent that thing from happening I'm sure there's still abuses in the system, but as long as, like I say, if the roll squad comes through and picks them up and puts them where they're supposed to be, then great. That's the only knock I have against this is that sometimes these scooters end up all over the place when they really shouldn't be in certain spots. So thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair. Was it? I can address that. That's a really good concern, important concern. So APE, automated parking enforcement, is just one measure we're using, but also this is a pilot project and we will make adjustment down the road. We will start with maybe 30, 40 scooters, and then once we see the impact and once we see the reaction, the feedback from the community, we will increase it. So it will be a phase-by-phase approach to mitigate that problem.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Has there ever been an age limit down to 14 years? Like, obviously, some of these 14-year-olds can ride mopeds. They have their learner's permit. Is that an option, or is that your own stipulation?
Through the chair, so we have an exemption from the province to operate these vehicles, and that exemption is stating that the riders have to be 16 or older. So we can't do 14, unfortunately. But we can also communicate this with the province to maybe further adjust this rule.
Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. A couple of questions. So you do promote the use of helmets, but helmets are not with the scooters. So people are people able to operate the scooter without a helmet?
Through the chair, that's correct. But we will be providing helmets at no cost through our website, through education events, through the tourism office, and various platforms.
Thank you. That's great. Second question is it possible to allow these scooters just on a trail, but not the area around there? Does that, like, is your GPS program, basically if there's a great big field and then there's just a trail, can you somehow keep the scooter just on the trail and not on the field? Is that a possibility?
Through the chair, we can definitely do that, but the main idea of shared micromobility is to provide a convenient mode of transportation and for people to commute easily. So we can definitely geofence just a trail, so people would be only allowed to be ride the scooters in that trail. But ideally, people would still want to bring the scooter to their home, ride the scooter to their home or other businesses. So it would not be within the scope of the pilot project, I would say.
Okay, I follow.
Certainly.
Well, my question had to do with actually, we have a shared trail between our two municipalities. Is there a possibility that eventually these scooters could go from Lacombe to Black Falls just on that trail, and then they can scoot around all of Black Falls or scoot all around Lacombe? That we had just talked briefly about that, so we were just wondering if that's a possibility, because you don't want them on the highway, right?
Yes, through the chair. So highways will be geofenced, so it won't be allowed to be ridden on roadways, highways, and we will restrict parking there as well. And in terms of the trail that connects to Black Falls, we actually had this conversation with Paula from Economic Development Department. And yeah, this is a really good opportunity. And moving forward, we're also happy to provide our e-bikes in the long term, and that will also create a lot of other opportunities. So yeah, that's something that we're discussing right now.
Thank you. Just curious, out of curiosity, what is the distance on a charge with these?
With a fully charged scooter, you can go up to 50 kilometers, depending on the surface conditions.
Great, thank you. So I guess I'm curious as to, this has been described as a partnership in your report. This is not a financial commitment on behalf of the city. What is the expectation in a partnership? What is the expectation from us?
Yeah, we will have check-in meetings with probably Paula from the Economic Development Department, and just to make sure everything is, we're on the same page, everything is going well. We will also report our numbers in terms of compliance, ridership, and that would be the only expectation, having these check-in meetings, and there would be no other expectation.
Very good. Well, should this work out positively, I hope that I don't end up like my colleague in St. Albert. I believe that Mayor Heron has recovered nicely from her tumble.
Yes, we heard about it too, but yeah, it was not in St. Albert, it was in Calgary, I believe, but yeah.
Well, the one in Calgary I witnessed, I think this was the second go around, but yeah, nonetheless. Councillor Dallas?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. My question's in regards to the role for everyone for bankless individuals. Is there incentives for partnerships with businesses in town to offer the sale of these ride cards, I guess, or how would that work?
Yes, normally we talk to small businesses in the area and people, we also promote them on our app. We also show these locations on our website as well. So people who are eligible, they can go there and pick up these cards with cash.
Okay, and then can I have a second follow-up question on that is the eligibility for reduced cost for the equity program. How do you determine eligibility?
Through the chair, that's a great question. So those riders need to be enrolled in a provincial income support program. Or there's also different programs, FCISS, if I remember correctly, family card. There's another program that I'm aware of, but yeah, it's not restricted to these specific programs, but we just need a proof of some sort of income support program application.
Thank you.
Don't see a lot of other lights on. Just to give us an idea of the scale of your business, how many, what's the proper name? I know you don't like scooter, the term scooter, micro mobility units. How many do you have deployed?
In St. Albert, it was 100 last year, but this year they put a cap because there's other players in the market as well. In Red Deer, we have up to 200 scooters this year. When we operated in Calgary, we had 200 scooters. So it really depends on the size. Cochrane might be a better example. We have 150 scooters in Cochrane.
And did I hear you correctly that you do e-bikes as well?
Yes, this is something that we can also discuss, but it's probably going to happen next year once we see the success of the e-scooter program in Lacombe. We can add bikes as well to our fleet later on.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I believe that's all the questions that we have for you this evening.
Thank you.
Manager Mitchell, are you going to join us? If we move down the agenda here to request for decision, item 6.1. For the first item is the City Hall parking lot. Could you bring us up to speed on this item, please, Manager Mitchell?
Evening, members of council. There we go. Can people online can hear me as well now? Tonight for council's consideration, I am presenting several options for repairs or rehabilitation of the City Hall parking lot. Last fall, Thompson Ditching completed a sewer repair for City Hall, and when they excavated the sewer line, they found that the material in the trench was of ununiform qualities and had high water content, which makes it really hard to compact when you're backfilling, and very difficult to achieve the levels we needed for paving. So we consulted with our geotechnical engineer that summer, and we agreed to postpone the paving for one freeze-thaw cycle, which really allows nature to help us consolidate the materials. In the interim, we took a look at the rest of the parking lot and recognized that it's near the end of its useful life, and there's no renewals right now scheduled in the 10-year capital plan. So to take advantage of the mobilization costs for the patchwork, we asked Thompson Ditching to provide a quote to complete a 50-millimeter overlay of the parking lot. They requested pricing from several of their subcontractors, but all declined, noting that the work noting that the existing asphalt was in poor condition. Therefore, they could not guarantee an overlay for any period of time, citing concerns such as the heavy equipment needed for the work would likely cause additional damage and result in unbudgeted repair work. The existing cracks would quickly propagate through the new asphalt, and the rubberized crack filler, which has been used quite liberally out there, would bubble through when overlaid with hot asphalt. I requested a second opinion from Parkland Geo, and they agreed that the existing asphalt is likely too thin and too brittle to support an overlay at this point. They recommended that the city consider either a full asphalt replacement or full reconstruction, which includes rebuilding the gravel base. With those recommendations in mind, administration tendered an optional scope for the reconstruction or rehabilitation of the City Hall parking lot, along with our 2022 Capital Works program, in order to obtain firm pricing. A quick update on that tender is that TJ Paving was the low bidder at just over $1.5 million, and we're currently in the process of preparing contract documents to award them the work. They are a new paving contractor to Lacombe, but in discussion with a few other municipalities in central Alberta, our engineer has determined that they have completed several successful projects of similar magnitudes in other municipalities. So back to the topic at hand, I have put together 4 options for council's consideration tonight. The first option is to patch the excavation site as originally proposed and budgeted. This requires no extra funds, but it also offers no improvement to the parking lot as a whole. The parking lot is estimated to be at least 30 years old, and based on visual observation, it has surpassed its useful life. This means that the asphalt and base provide inadequate support for typical traffic loads, and it will continue to deteriorate with potholes and cracks forming more frequently and more severely in the coming years. However, the traffic loadings in this parking lot are minor, and it could last for several more years before it requires replacement due to drivability issues. The city could patch the excavation this year and defer any further work until the asphalt degrades to a very poor condition rating. If this option is selected, there may be some throwaway costs if the asphalt is replaced along with the rest of the parking lot in a couple of years. And just for an idea of scope, I did a quick calculation and we're in about that 12 to 13% range of the total parking lot was eaten up by this trench. The second option is to patch the excavation site and microsurface the entire parking lot. Now, microsurfacing is typically used to preserve asphalt and prevent it from deteriorating any further. It's a thin surface treatment that seals the asphalt to prevent water infiltration and replaces some of the fines. It will fill minor rutting and temporarily smooth the surface, but it does not repair cracks, though it does prevent them from worsening. For that reason, it's typically completed 5 to 12 years after initial paving so that you can preserve roads that are in good condition and keeping them in good condition even longer. In our case, we'll be trying to preserve a parking lot that's already in poor condition and improving it temporarily to fair condition and then preserving it in poor condition for several more years. In talking with both Stantec and TJ Paving, who came out and specifically looked at this option with me, they reported that they completed several projects in our region, similar scale, similar conditions, and those parking lots have lasted 10 to 12 years and counting. So, you know, we're not going to get a great product, but we're going to get a very serviceable product with this option. Option 3 is to remove all of the asphalt, regrade the existing gravel, and repave the parking lot. This was Parkland Geo's 10-year recommendation, meaning that in 10 years, we'd have to do some additional work because you'd begin to see some failures beyond that fair condition. Realistically, the structure will be very similar to what was done 30 years ago, and so I would expect it to have a similar performance to the parking lot that was installed 30 years ago. Likely remain in good, very good to fair condition for the first 10 years, and then slowly degrade into that fair to poor condition for the next 10 plus years. So without any major maintenance. So I would expect that, you know, you could get 20 years of life out of that option without too much of a stretch. The fourth option is to completely rebuild the parking lot, including all of the gravel base. This is the most expensive option, and I would only recommend it if City Hall were to remain a city facility for more than 20 years. The budget for this option, I have included $32,000 worth of select concrete replacement around the perimeter, and this is if we do rebuild a beautiful brand new parking lot, we don't want to have to cut into it in 5 or 10 years to repair, you know, some heaving concrete or cracked concrete pads, as that will reduce the life of the asphalt. And I also included some rehabilitation of the car plug-in structures. As you've probably noticed, a few of them are leaning, and the black railing out there could use a new powder coat. A full rebuild will also allow more flexibility for future rehabilitations. So if the city were to complete some maintenance every 15 to 20 years, such as a mill and pave or a thin overlay, we could maintain that parking lot in very good to fair condition for 50 plus years with this option. And it could be completed now, and you would save the $26,000 in the cost of the patch, or you could defer it until our parking lot degrades all the way to very poor condition and really needs some attention. If you look at page 4 of the report, there is a summary table that outlines the cost impacts for each option. So option 1, there is no change to the budget, but there is also no change to the lifespan of the parking lots. Option 2 will cost an additional $62,230, but it will extend the parking lot in fair to poor condition for another 10 to 12 years. Option 3 will cost an additional $136,790, and it will extend the parking lot in good to fair condition for 10 years, and you'll probably get another 10 years in fair to poor condition. Option 4 will cost $315,735, and it will result in a parking lot that's in very good to fair condition for at least 20 years and allow for future rehabilitations to keep that in good to fair condition if we complete work every 15 to 20 years or up to 50 years. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Councillor Konik?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. Just quick question. The executive summary, you have a number there that doesn't, it's different than 1.5 million. Am I reading that wrong?
That's for the
That's a
capital
capital.
works project. Sorry, confusing the issue there. I just wanted to provide you a quick update on the capital works.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So if the sewer line was completely patched, I see in some secondary roads where they'll do like a complete oil and then put a pebbled gravel over top of it. Is that an option? Because then, okay, I'm comparing secondary 792, the Lincoln Road west of town. That was a extra oiled and then pebbled surface after it was a pavement for several years. Was that what a microsurface is, or is what you're talking about? Is that including like a gravel pebble?
Yes, if I may, when they microsurface, they do put a slurry over top, which is like an oil-based product, and then they will put a gravel aggregate on it, and that helps build the fines. Like asphalt oxidates, and so that's where you see kind of getting that rough surface. That's when all the fines have been washed out of the gravel or aged out of the gravel. So this kind of refurbishes the surfaces, if you will. So for the first few months, the parking lot will feel a little bit rougher, similar to the road there. And with use, it will wear in and smooth out.
Chief Cody?
I just want to clarify. I think what you're referring to on Lincoln Road is what we would call a chip seal, which includes like a larger aggregate than you're typically going to see in a micro seal, which is going to be more about the fines and restoring the fines. So they are similar, very similar processes, but one has a heavier the chip seal that you've described has a heavier application of oil. I believe it is typically a heavier weight oil, and there's a higher size of aggregate than the micro seal. It's kind of like a mini version of what you're thinking of.
If I may, you probably have seen it on Highway 2. If you've driven Highway 2, they have had sections where they've microsurfaced. I'm trying to think if I think it was between here and Edmonton last year. I noticed a section, and when you drive over it, it looks like new asphalt, but it feels rougher. And then this year, it's actually much more similar in rideability compared to the road around it.
So Manager Mitchell, I guess basically the micro surfacing more or less as an aesthetic item with the theory of replacing some of the oils, basically a tack oil with some fines in it. I guess I just have a hard time spending 3 times the cost of the patchwork in prettying up a parking lot that sees precious little traffic and that offers nothing to structurally reinforce this supposed problem that there is there. It's only lasted 30-some years now. So I have a hard time endorsing anything other than the patch system there, because I think we have a hard time justifying that to our public when there's roads that are in need of repair far more than what this parking lot is. And also investing a great deal of money in albeit an important building, one that I expect will be replaced prior to outliving a completely new parking lot. So that would be my preference, is to just patch that was allowed for in the previous budget and will not have any impacts further to our budget for the reasons that I outlined. Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. And yeah, thanks for those comments, because that did, my question right away was, is there a standard that we need to meet but with our parking lot around our city hall? And I know that that's maybe not a good way to make decisions, but the public really doesn't travel around City Hall. They are in the front here, but this too would get them, the whole place would get that seal. I guess, so that would be my question to my fellow councillors is, do we have a standard that we feel that this parking lot does not meet just in terms of aesthetics? And then secondly, I was just funding. Like I too tripped over that 1.5 million. I was sort of thinking, okay, where are we going with that? And then I realized that's our total budget. But how would we fund this extra 62,000? That would be, maybe it's clear. I'm not seeing it right now, but thank you.
Chief Gowdy?
We would fund it with the general capital reserve.
Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So I had actually brought this forward as a question not that long ago because I do obviously walk a lot. So as opposed to just pulling up in the front, I'm going through a lot more of the parking lot. I guess now my first comment is that I'm probably supporting the idea that Mayor Creasy has mentioned that that the patch is definitely the, you know, probably the wisest way to go at this moment. However, the roughness of the parking lot isn't just that one little area that was excavated. Like there's significant failures, like some significant I don't know, gaps, if you want to call it. I find this parking lot quite hazardous to walk as a pedestrian. Now, of course, I'm wearing footwear. Sometimes that's probably not all that practical, but honestly, so are people that are coming to City Hall. And so I think it's a little bit embarrassing to have a parking lot that looks the way that it does, especially when we have complaints in this city from residents, you know, why, and I won't get into, you know, what locations, but certain locations in town with terrible, terrible parking lots, and we all know, you know, where those are. And because they're not public property, we can't really do anything about it. And then here we go having like this abomination out here, right? So I my question is, I would like to see obviously the patch done. I don't think we need to go excessively like beyond that, but I guess could we do a little bit more than just the patch? Because like there's this big large fissure down the middle of this section over here, for example. Like these are tripping hazards. This isn't just a matter of cosmetic. It's actually like it's dicey to navigate, and especially worse in the winter. So I guess that would be my comment is, can we do a little more than maybe just the section that was removed from the work that was done, but maybe not go that full like micro surfacing or whatever the term was.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbs. So I guess one thing that we should realize is that there is a small amount left over in the budget. I think $6,000 or $8,000 is left over that could be used to address some severely problematic areas. And just to be clear, this micro surfacing is not going to address those types of areas that Councillor Hibbs was referring to. I just wanted to make sure everyone's clear on that item. Go ahead.
If I may, perhaps that's my fault for not being super clear in the memo, but the microsurfacing did include a small allowance for specific areas such as that red out front. So that would be cold patched before it was microsurfaced, and any large potholes would be cold patched before it was microsurfaced. And areas that have small redding or those kind of things, the microsurfacing would fill those as well. So you will have a smoother, more rideable parking lot at the end of microsurfacing. What it won't do is it's not cutting out the cracks. It's not, you know, it's just sealing them so water doesn't get in, and water is the enemy of cracks. If it gets in, the freeze thaw cycles tend to expand and thaw and shrink and expand and shrink, and they make those cracks bigger. So that's essentially what you'd be doing is trying to preserve the cracks from getting any larger. You would be smoothing off the rest of the parking lot, but you're right, it's not going to be the ultimate fix.
I was just curious, is there any other communities in the area that have had any experience with microsurfacing that we could use for experience?
There are, and unfortunately, I don't have any names for you, but I could definitely get some from the contractor. Like I said, he's done similar parking lots in central Alberta.
How did things work out for Red Deer?
City of Red Deer?
Yes.
Which parking lot? I'm not aware of any similar parking lot
I
project.
don't even know that it was parking lot. There was just some that they had tried, and it was
Microsurfacing?
apparently it was not to their liking, but I was just curious how that worked out. Do you have any information on that, Chief Gowdy?
I know that Red Deer was trying microsurfacing as a rehabilitation on some roads, and they were finding that It did not, I guess the degradation of the roads did not necessarily follow the steep drop off that was predicted by AT, wherein a road would be non-linearly deteriorating. So if you take that non-linear deterioration out, the smaller preemptive rehabilitation efforts like microservicing actually become less cost effective than they've always been expected to be. So I'm not aware of them continuing to use it extensively on roadways. I don't have any experience with it in terms of parking lots. That we don't have a lot of knowledge of.
Appreciate that. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess, I don't know, in my opinion, I'm in support of option 2. I think having a safe and accessible parking lots is very important. I know workplace incidents can happen just walking into the office. I know it can happen for people visiting us. Just rolled my ankle on Friday and regret it immensely and would like that nobody else has to go that. And I also know it's an expense on the city when that happens. So I think just something like this, if we can make our lot more appealing and safer at the same time and accessible, I think that's important.
Thank you for that. I just don't want us to go down a rabbit hole here. This microsurfacing does not make anything safer. Fixing the areas with the cold mix similar to what is proposed being fixed on the dugout areas will make it safer by taking care of those areas. The microsurfacing is intended in theory to extend the life of the asphalt by filling in a micro layer. Like it doesn't make things smoother or safer in and of itself. Just so we're clear on that. So sorry, certainly follow up, yeah.
So I'm sorry, so this will not level out surfacing, like I was under the impression that I just heard it would level surfaces and remove some rutting and irregularities.
No, it's microscopically it will, by digging out the problem areas and filling them in and then covering with the micro, for all intents and purposes, drywall mud before the paint. The microsurface is the paint part.
That's correct, Mayor Creasy. So if I may, that included in the cost here was asphalt patching, which would be the drywall mud. We could put the drywall mud in without doing the paint, to Mayor Creasy's analogy. So we could do some additional patching, such as on that crack out there, without doing the entire microsurfacing of the parking lot.
Which in fact would have an effect on safety and eliminate some of the areas that Councillor Hibbs was mentioning, correct?
Correct.
Okay. A few lights on here. Chief Gowdy, go ahead.
However, the microsurfacing slurry itself does fill minor depressions such as rutting or, say, localized depressions. It's not going to fill cracks, potholes, anything of that nature that's been identified for cold mix. But to say there's no effect is probably, I actually thought you were relating it to drywall mud. And I thought, yeah, that's accurate. It's tiny little benefits, but there's no structural improvement from microsurfacing. I think that's the most important.
Thank you. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So the $26,000, does that include the patching of the parking lot?
That includes the patching over where the sewer line was excavated. So where you're seeing the gravel trench. It doesn't include the crevice that Councillor Hibbs was mentioning, kind of through the center right out front here. But that could be added at a fairly minor cost.
Okay, so would it be possible to get that cost and what it would to do the patching on the whole parking lot? Because I think we need to do that at the minimum to make it safe. I mean, it's nice to have it look good, but I don't know if that's necessary with the age of the building.
So I guess one nice thing about doing the patching and whatnot now, if we did not choose to do the microservicing, it's not like this is I mean, it has to be done in any event, So to have a wait and see how it goes after the patching is a perfectly viable alternative.
Mhm.
It's not like the microsurfacing is going to cost a bunch more to have it done at a later date. It may be a little more, but I mean, as you can see, I'm not a big fan of the value for an additional $60,000 or $70,000 to make it all dark black as opposed to black. Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. So I'm just, for my whole clarification then, so this 94,000 doesn't include cold pack to fix some of the other problems.
Does.
It does. So option 2 then fixes, does the pack, then it fills in some of the other potholes, and then you do a microsurface over the whole thing. Okay.
Correct. And if I may, Mayor Creasy, to your previous comment, you're right, the microsurfacing can be done at any point. Asphalt does have a degradation curve, and it can drop off at the end, where it can be hanging along fairly good, and then you hit really bad. And that's where you start to see those potholes, that asphalt cracking out, spalling, breaking, that kind of thing. When it hits that point, a microsurfacing really won't do anything. So at that point, you've moved on to option 3 or 4 as your only true viable options. So you just want to make sure you don't let it go too far is my only comment there.
Fair enough. Councillor Connick?
Thank you,
Something
Mayor
else?
Christie. Oops, sorry. Then I'm just prepared to make the motion then. That council approve a budget increase of 62,230 for option 2 to patch the excavation and microsurface City Hall parking lot at a total cost of 94,730.
Anyone else? All those in favor? Those opposed? That is amazingly enough carried. Thank you. The next item is 6.2, a tax reduction request from Keras Village Housing Society. Chief Gowdy?
I'm sorry, there was an error in the title of that. As per the request for council decision, it should be a tax deferral request. There is no reduction component being requested. However, the Keras Village Housing Society of Central Alberta, which is a nonprofit agency, is requesting deferral of approximately 88,000 of the deadline for approximately $88,000 of property taxes, which are currently due in June 2020. And they have requested that they be deferred to 2022, and that they be deferred to December 2022. And the main reason is that they are unoccupied units. And so from their perspective, the need for city services and the demand on city services really isn't there. You have previously considered and approved a similar deferral of tax collection in 2020. And so that would be consistent with your past decisions. Taxes levied over the past 4 years for the Keras Village have risen from approximately $51,000 in 2019 in the first year the facility was in operation to an expected $183,000 this year, and further increases expected as they continue additional phases of the development. So we have highlighted this as aligning with your value of collaborating with community stakeholders on community economic development, but not necessarily aligning with your desire for sustainable funding, although really the financial impact of the municipality is likely to be negligible. So we are recommending that council accept this report as information, to decline the request from the Keras Village Housing Society to defer property taxes, because we're be consistent in that recommendation. But certainly if you reference your previous decisions, it would be in keeping for you to authorize this deferral.
Thank you, Chief Gowdy. Councillor Hickster.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Could you just, maybe I'm little slow on the uptake here. The city would not earn penalty fees. There would be, I'm just going by that one sentence, and then it ends with approximately 22,000. So we would have to submit, it's right under your executive summary. The city would not earn penalty fees. There would be an increased gap between remittance and collection. So we would have to remit 22,000 before we got it. Is that what that's saying?
Yes, that is correct. Your remittance of the education component to the province is not going to be deferred. And so in theory, there would be a financing charge if the municipality were to borrow that. In reality, we would use our unallocated surplus, but the opportunity cost of that is that you could be investing that surplus rather than using it to finance the province's share of taxes on this portion of the property.
Councillor Dallas?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess I'm looking for guidance here. Just based on my notes here, it says this happened in July 13th of 2020 and then in April 26, 2021. I guess my question is it just poor planning on the organization's part to account for this, or is this just due to the timing of building that this keeps happening?
I think we'll find out that it's neither of those, but go ahead, Chief Gowdy.
Mayor Creasy is correct. I would say it's neither poor planning nor timing. It's a request from the agency to support the economic viability of this nonprofit project. And so it is something that I expect you will see requests on an annual basis to this same point, that really they're looking for any way they can defray costs to support the development of further phases. This particular one, because of the nature of the multifamily housing, it's a lot of upfront costs, and it actually took some time to start selling those life leases. And so there was significant carrying costs that they were looking to deal with the timing of them.
Thank you for correcting that and giving me the proper explanation.
So I guess for me, it's been no secret I've been a big proponent or strong advocate for this development. But at some point it has to pay its way. And I guess it would be nice to have some sort of an idea when that may be. Is this at 50% occupancy or a higher number, or what is it? Because like all housing options, it still does have an effect in the market, and we have for-profit companies that, quite frankly, won't get this break, probably ever, or very rarely at least. So somewhere we have to balance that. And while I'm not opposed to this year, I think there needs to be some sort of a limit on this time frame, because we're just going to do this every year. We might as well just make it a bylaw that all nonprofit housing doesn't ever have to pay taxes on time, and it kind of defeats the purpose of it. There's really the delay, the 6-month delay, like it's really just for the time that it takes in this room. Monetarily, is a hard thing to justify for what it's saving. But once again, I applaud their efforts, but I think it's unreasonable to expect this to go on in perpetuity for this and future enhancements to that in long-range development. Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I was kind of thinking the same thing when I first read this, because I thought we might as well just put it for the next 5 years, because you're just going to keep coming back. I mean, I can appreciate their situation. They're not selling those units as quickly as they'd like, but because the mayor said, what's the timeline? What do we should almost set a target if we're going to keep doing this, because yeah, and like the mayor says too, if it were for profit, I mean, if the apartment building across the way doesn't get occupancy right away, it doesn't fill up right away, I mean, is he going to come looking for a tax break? Right? Like, I don't know, COVID was one thing, but now we're getting a little out of hand.
Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I guess I had two questions when I was reading this, maybe considering that the administration works with requester to generate alternative options like that motion potentially, or do they just want to report to us? Is this their way of keeping us on their, that they're on our radar? Because they do request, do they not, a chance to talk to us as a council? So is this their way of communicating to us? I don't know. I personally am okay with doing it one more year, but I too wonder about, is there another option, or that's 50% of that value this time? And so then I would maybe endorse that other motion, just that you not taking it just as information, but that we direct administration to work with the requester to generate alternative options. Maybe I will make that motion. May I make that motion?
You can make any motion that you would like.
Well, then that's, that is what I'll move, that council directs administration work with the requester to generate alternative options.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So I guess my question is to administration is, when is the education tax due that is X amount of dollars? That would, if this decision is not brought forth as a feedback, as a direction to Keras, the education, at least the education tax has to be paid by somebody, or it's going to be a late penalty from that part of the tax. Would I gather not? Like, guess I'm asking for.
So we won't incur a late payment because we'll pay the whole thing right away. I believe it's July 31st, but I actually don't know that date 100% accurately. It's a short time after our collection deadline, though, that the province expects theirs within 30 or 60 days.
Councillor Ross, your point being that it's one thing for us not to collect the municipal portion, but the school portion we're paying anyway. And
Yes.
yes, well, there's only, not somebody. It's only one. Yeah.
There's a deadline for everything.
Councillor Elkson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. And I would assume that could be one of the options, is that they pay the school tax and then we defer the other tax till December. And then we're not out anything other than the interest maybe on that 88 or the 66,000 or whatever it is.
Cutting?
Yes, I think they would be open to anything council would consider. And that would be to get 75% roughly of their request, I think would be welcome by the proponent.
And I think to the mayor's comments about ongoing, I think as we get into the next phase of this, it could even be worse. You know, their Keras part of their project. So I don't know if we want to make this an ongoing thing or not, because once they start building that and it's not fully fully occupied, I think you could see some issues as far as taxes go there too. So I'm willing for this year on the Councillor Hoekstra's motion for an alternative for sure.
Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I just want to weigh in on this one as well. I will be supporting Councillor Hoekstra's motion, but I do think that it needs to be communicated that I think that there was an expectation that we were allowing for things like COVID that was previously mentioned, but that accommodation is starting to wane. And so I think moving forward that new ideas need to be come up on their behalf because it isn't my expectation this will be ongoing. And I'm hearing around the table that this is not going to be an ongoing situation. So that needs to be communicated.
Thank you. Anyone else? So the motion before us then, Coordinator Balabono reads how?
Mayor Creasy, the motion on the floor is that council directs administration work with the requester to generate alternative options.
Is that to your liking, Councillor Hoekstra?
Yes.
Reading, very good. Any additional comments or discussion? If not, I will call the question then. All those in favor? Those opposed? So noted. Councillor Ross, thank you. So I believe that was the only two requests for decision. Perhaps yeah. Prior to transmission. Prior to that, Chief Guy.
One item that has been brought to my attention that unfortunately I didn't notice earlier is that we had selected an incorrect date for the public hearing for the rezone of Lot 2, Block 8, Plan 0326218. That's bylaw 400.39, which was in your consent agenda. And so I would request council consider altering the public hearing date from the proposed June 20th to July 13th. June 20th does not meet our timelines, and nor do we have actually a meeting on that date. So oversight on our part, but if you would indulge us the amendment, we would plan accordingly and advertise.
Very good. Given that that is further in the future, I don't think that that should be an issue, but we'll certainly put it to a vote. Coordinator Bellabono?
I just wanted to confirm, is that June 13th or July 11th?
July 11th. Thank you.
Very good. And we do have a regular council meeting scheduled for Monday, June 13th, according to my notes here, and that will be in chambers here at 5:30 p.m. And then again on Monday, July 11th, of course, one we discussed here in chambers on at 5:30 p.m. as well. The item here for that I have listed as June 6th, is that something that we need to discuss?
Yes, that actually was scheduled in error, and we have no items for the committee meeting, the proposed committee meeting of June 6th. So we would propose canceling it because there is no items for that meeting, and my apologies for that oversight.
Unless council's looking for a get together with no municipal purpose, I rather don't, that'll be a problem to get rid of it. I don't believe that we need a motion for that one, but we should have a motion to correct something that was put out with a slight clerical error according to the date for the public hearing. So if someone would care to move the update of the correct date for the public hearing of bylaw. Thank you. Councillor Dallas.
I'd like to put a motion forward to correct the date for bylaw 400.39 to July 11th.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I guess, sorry. Is that all? For public hearing.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Anything else before we consider our in-camera items? Then we would need a motion, please. Councillor Hibbs.
I move that we go in camera.
Thank you very much.